Welcome to Flashpoints. I'm Jeff Pegues. Joining me from New York, CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate. The U.S. has released a trove of documents recovered in the operation that killed Osama bin Laden. Let's discuss some of the documents released, including his reading list, and why they may or may not be significant. I'm going to go through some of the books on his reading list. Juan, okay. Obama's Wars by Bob Woodward, Unfinished Business, U.S. Overseas Military Presence in the 21st Century. That is a book by Michael O'Hanlon. Just a few of the books on this very extensive reading list. Looks like he had some time to read in Pakistan.
No, it's absolutely right, Jeff. He did have time to read. He had years to study and to understand what was unfolding in the West. And this reflects something that we've talked about often, especially those of us in the counterterrorism field, that the enemy reads what we write, they listen to what we say, they try to gain insights all the time. And bin Laden very much saw himself as a strategic leader of this global jihadi movement, fighting a historic battle against the remaining superpower in the world, the United States. And so he wanted to understand as much as possible what made the United States work. He wanted to understand its vulnerabilities, which is why you see them talking and learning about the Vietnam experience quite a bit. And they clearly wanted to understand the fissures in the system, that is to say, the vulnerabilities the United States has. And so the reading list doesn't surprise me. The authors of some of those books may be surprised. They may welcome it. But the reality is bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, who now leads al-Qaeda, reads what is written in the West. They listen to what we say and certainly try to use our vulnerabilities against us.
But doesn't that suggest some sort of intelligence weakness? If he is getting his information from these books, doesn't that suggest some sort of gaping hole in al-Qaeda's intelligence?
Well, Jeff, keep in mind you've got two dimensions of what's being released by the Director of National Intelligence in terms of the documents. One are the unclassified documents and things that were in the compound and around it. The list of books that you've described fits into that category. You then have documents that were considered classified, communications that he was getting from his own operatives, from his communication channels, which ultimately became his downfall. The courier system that he was using to send out communiques and directions and to get information back ultimately is what led us to the compound in Abbottabad. And so he had sources of information other than these books and certainly was trying to get insights as to what was happening. But clearly he was isolated. He was still trying to control the direction of this movement and still trying to direct operations. This is something we understood and knew when I was at the White House and when we were hunting bin Laden and trying to track where the al-Qaeda core was driving threats against the United States. So the reading list doesn't surprise me, and it was just one source of information that he had.
Well, so does the job application surprise you? That was something else that was uncovered and released by the U.S. government. Among the questions on this al-Qaeda job application, do you have hobbies? Have you been convicted of a crime? What objectives would you like to accomplish on your jihad path? They had a job app?
They did. They vetted their membership and their employee base, so to speak, their recruits. And I think this reminds us of a couple of things. One, al-Qaeda was trying to recruit from a select group of individuals, often looking for Westerners, often looking for clean skins, those who have not come to the attention of law enforcement. They also wanted to weed out spies. They were very worried about infiltration by intelligence services. So that explains part of this. It also reflects the fact that al-Qaeda, not unlike the Islamic State, Jeff, is actually very hierarchical, bureaucratic. They have lines of communication, lines of authority. When I was tracking al-Qaeda's finances, they had very strict rules as to how to submit receipts to be reimbursed. And so these are organizations that work like bureaucracies often and can be very fluid and dangerous, but then can also look very human and vulnerable. And those are the vulnerabilities that we try to take advantage of if you're talking about counterterrorism.
We have about 20 seconds left. Is al-Qaeda today what it was before bin Laden's death? It seems like it's been eclipsed by ISIS.
Yes, it's very different. And I think the problem here is that the vision of bin Laden of creating a global movement driving toward an Islamic caliphate has come to some degree to fruition in the idea of the Islamic State, what it's done to erase borders between Iraq and Syria, and with the metastasizing of the Al-Qaeda franchise around the world. And so I think the Al-Qaeda of 2015 and the movement that it spawned is very different from the Al-Qaeda we encountered in 2001, and in many ways was part of the vision of what bin Laden was hoping to achieve. Unfortunately, we're still in the middle of this battle, and it's why we've got to be vigilant and we've got to worry about it.
More than 100 Osama bin Laden related documents released by the government. Juan Zarate, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Pegues, and that is Flashpoints.